Hey there, my name is Anthony Masi, and you're watching Slasher Pepper. Stick around, it's fun. It's a lot of fun here.
Hey guys, Slasher Pepper, and welcome to another video. Today, I'm going to be interviewing Anthony Masi. How are you doing?
I'm great. It's fun to be here. I'm wearing my Halloween t-shirt. All is good.
Awesome. Representing the horror fans, right?
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. My first question was, do you have any new projects coming up?
I do. I have some cool projects. One I would love to talk about, but I can't because just the way that it is, you kind of have to keep things quiet. But yes. I can tell you about a little documentary I did, and we're probably going to be talking about my documentary. So this fits. So yeah, I just did a documentary on the Paranormal Activity movies. It's called Unknown Dimension. And we just had our wrap dinner last night. I took out our crew, and 2 years in the making, and it's basically a documentary on the incredible success of all the Paranormal Activity movies. A lot of people don't know there are 6 of those. They're phenomenally successful. The writer director Oren Kelly made that first movie for Paranormal Activity for $15,000. He shot it in his house. It made $193 million at the box office. So I mean, that's unheard of, and it's every filmmaker's dream.
Yeah,
and
for
so,
sure.
Right. So my producing partner, my really good friend Nate Reagan, texted me one night and said, "Why don't you do like a documentary on Paranormal Activity?" And I was kind of like, well, documentaries, they've all been done now. All the major franchises have been done. And he's like, "No, you don't understand. There's no bonus features on like any of the 6 movies, DVDs and Blu-rays." I was like, that's not possible. Like, you pull out any Chucky DVD, Child's Play, there's like 2 hours of, and he's like, no, there's no footage, there's no bonus features, there's maybe a commentary, and like an alternate scene or something like that. But out of 6 movies, there was nothing. And that floored me because it's just, you don't hear that. So anyway, so long story short, we decided to do this retrospective because here's a studio making all these, like the films, all of the films combined have made like $850 million. And like, what's the story behind that? And they're not like feature films that you would normally make at a studio. This is all handheld. It's all really cheap.
Right.
Filmmaking.
Yeah.
Right. So we decided to do a documentary, and my other very good friend, Rachel Bolofsky, she runs the Scream Fest Film Festival in LA, and that's the LA's premier horror festival. Her festival discovered Paranormal Activity. It was her festival that said yes to Oren when he submitted the film, when all the other festivals passed. And so nice. She got the movie through some little other help of hers over to Paramount, and so she was very integral to the success of the first movie. And so we banded together with Nate and Rachel, and we got our director Joe Bandelli involved, and Joe is the producer of the Hell House movies, and he wanted to direct this. And so we just put this project together over the past couple of years. We interviewed everyone in the series, and it was a blast. It was really a lot of fun. It's a filmmaking journey. You learn how a major studio, this is what freaking fascinated me. You learn how a major studio embraced indie style filmmaking, and it was one of their most successful franchises ever. And they made more money than Cloverfields. They made more money than you name it. And so it's an extremely fascinating filmmaking story. So that should be coming out this fall. And I believe that's when the new Paranormal Activity movie is coming out as well.
Awesome.
I don't have confirmation on a date yet, but it keeps getting moved up. It was supposed to be March of last year, and then it was December, and now it's the fall, and who knows? But our documentary will be released to coincide with that theatrical release.
That's really cool. Yeah, I bet that like making a movie, like a documentary movie about such a franchise like that, and seeing it progress over the movies, that must be so interesting, Like I read a book recently called The Making of Raiders of the Lost Ark, and it's basically a documentary book about like the making of Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's just this guy, even though this is like during filming, so this guy was just on set you know,
Oh, that's fantastic. Wow.
interviewing people. Like that must be so much
Well,
fun,
in many ways, yeah, and first of all, that's amazing. Second of all, you can tell more in a book because in a documentary, you've only
Right.
got a certain amount of time.
Yeah, I
Um,
bet.
and so a book on the making of Paranormal Activity, I think, would be fantastic too. But again, this is the first time anybody's ever spoken about it. So,
Yeah,
like
that's
for
so
instance,
cool.
um, the director Chris Landon, he did Freaky. He's done a bunch of movies. I didn't realize how important he was to the Paranormal Activity story, and he was very important starting in part 2 all the way through this current movie. Gregory Plotkin was the editor of a lot of these films, and those two guys really helped shape all of the films starting at part 2. It's just when you look at how these movies are made, I mean, there's no, I mean, there's some special effects, but they're treated like it's real. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you look at, like, if you say, what's the story of Paranormal Activity? The whole point of the series is there's not supposed to be any story. It's surveillance footage.
Yeah.
It's surveillance footage, and you just happen to be capturing these things. So the mere fact that they've sustained story through 6 movies in a series that really shouldn't have a story, and it's very thin story, it's just a testament to what actually is what makes a good movie, and especially a good horror movie. And a good horror movie is all about timing and suspense. And in our documentary, Chris Landon talks about how these movies deal with space. I don't know if have you seen all the movies?
I haven't actually.
Right, nobody has. I didn't. I think when Nate asked me, I was like, I think I've seen up to part 4, and part 5 is amazing. It's one of my favorite. I'm like, part 5 is. I love part 5 so much. Part 6 was in 3D. And they were,
of course. Yeah, it had to be one in 3D, right?
Like the filmmakers kind of railed against it. They're like, that's the antithesis of what the original movie was. The whole point was like to keep it simple, and
Yeah.
and all. So yeah, I feel like I didn't know all this, and I think that was the beauty of it. Whenever you embark on a documentary where you're going to like go behind the scenes and stuff, you really don't know what you're going to find. And here we just the love of filmmaking and like what makes a great movie, and how the studio, that's key. This, like, Cloverfield had come out a year before Paranormal Activity, or 2 years before, and that was a found footage movie. When you think about it, it was treated like found footage and everything, but that was a multi-million-dollar budget. So here comes Paranormal Activity, and it comes through the door, and they're like, well, what do we do with this home movie? Because it really was just like a home movie. So they fought against it. They didn't know how to market it. They didn't know what to do with it. And so we tell the entire story about how Oren and Jason Blum kind of banded together to kind of like sabotage any type of remake effort made by the studio. It's just when you hear the story, you're like, I can't believe, number one, this worked, and number two, I can't believe it made so much money. Yeah. And yeah, it's really the most unique documentary that I've done, because the Friday the 13th movies, they cranked out one every year for the first 7 or 8 years. Yeah. That's what it was. But here it was very inspired, and I just was smiling all the way through each interview. I was like, wow, this is really cool. And then how do you replicate that success from the first movie into a sequel? Like, how do you do a sequel to a found footage movie? Like, did they find more footage? It doesn't make sense inherently. They made it work. So yeah, I hope horror fans check it out. I know that in spite of its success, I know that it's wildly successful. It's made more money than maybe the Halloween films up till a point. I think the latest Halloween movie maybe put them over, but it's made more money than most of the horror franchises. But there's no merchandise,
right?
Do you go to horror conventions? Do you go to like horror conventions and stuff like that?
We don't have those really here in Holland, which is too bad. But
okay, cool.
Yeah. But yeah, they probably don't have surveillance cameras with like the Paranormal Activity logo there for sale.
Right, so it's like it's so successful, and yet there's no footprint of it. There's no presence of it. And they do that for a very specific reason. They want you to think it's real to a certain point. We all know it's a movie, but to keep that sort of fantasy going.
Yeah.
they don't market it and everything. And I just imagine how much money Oren would have made if they had merchandise. And so yeah, I really hope that horror fans check it out to learn why they should fall in love with it. You know, I have some friends that are like, I just never got into Paranormal Activity, and I'm like, just give them a go. Take a weekend, watch them all. Wow, this is amazing. So
Nice. Nice. Yeah, one movie I found out didn't have like any special features either. Which is sort of understandable because it's like a movie no one talks about anymore. It's Stephen King's The Night Flyer. There was a movie adaptation for that one. Did you ever see it?
yeah, a long time ago. Yeah.
It's so good, man. I love that movie, and yeah, that's someone I would love to. I would love to interview the director of that film. He seems very passionate about it too.
You might as well. I mean, it's, I think that's, we all want to know about, especially as horror fans, about the movies we love, and there's like no end to it. I mean, I'm a huge Halloween fan. It's been my favorite series since I was, a kid.
Nice.
And I can talk to my friends every day about Halloween. And I think the thing that astonishes me is that no matter how much we talk about it, there's always still something to talk about. And I just find that fascinating. We all keep wanting to talk about these movies that mean so much to us. I have a friend that I was talking to this morning, just chatting, and he had for the first time discovered the television version of Halloween 2. The extended version where they had to fill a 2-hour time slot that had commercials, and that the movie wasn't long enough, so they just kind of re-edited a bunch of stuff, and it's like laughable when you watch it because you're like, why is Michael walking down this hall again for like the 10th? Like, yeah. It's filling up time, and I could talk about that forever because it's interesting to me, and I think horror fans, I think it's their passion that just keeps it alive. So all the behind the scenes stuff is such a treat. So I think you should contact the director of Night Flyer and do your own little like documentary. People will want to. I'll watch it. Why not?
He's not replying to my message on Messenger, which is too bad. Maybe one day, right?
He will.
And can you tell us more? Like, I can't imagine that you can't tell more about this, so absolutely no pressure. But can you tell us more about the Silent Night, Deadly Night reboot?
I can tell you some stuff. I can tell you, the thing is that, like, it's my first feature in sort of that, like, with a franchise. I never thought, being like the horror fan that I am and everything, that I would actually be involved in a franchise like that. It's my dream to kind of get my hands on a franchise like Silent Night, Deadly Night. So, but I'm also learning that there's a process, and you really can't announce attachments and things like that until they're official, and there's a very clear definition of what official means. So maybe in a couple weeks I'd be able to say a lot more, but right now I can tell you it's amazing. We're having a blast. We think we have a story that is going to surprise people. We think we're going to really tell, and we're going to reinvigorate the series and start it with an intention of creating a part 2 and a part 3 and a part 4.
Nice.
that becomes its own thing. Here's the thing about Silent Night, Deadly Night is, and I'm sure because you're like a super fan, right? Of horror. The movie no one got to see it because it was only in theaters for a little while. It was pulled because of backlash from these advocacy groups that couldn't get their mind around the idea of like Santa with an axe, killing people. So it got pulled, and it opened on the same weekend as A Nightmare on Elm Street and outperformed A Nightmare on Elm Street. It would have had legs. It would have gone on to be huge, but it kind of got squashed. There are 4 sequels, but like nobody really cares. The second one has a popular line of dialogue about Garbage Day.
Day, yep.
That's great, but like, I think I liked part 5, The Toymaker, I think it was called, but
4 was done by Brian Usna, who did like some of the Reanimator films. So that one was pretty cool too, I think.
Wild. It's like this bug movie, and like, what am I watching? But the idea. So here's what I loved about Silent Night, Deadly Night is it's a movie about this person who is affected by trauma, and it's like their anxiety gets re-triggered and there's this confluence of like religious influence and what naughty means to a religious person, and carrying this trauma of seeing his parents killed. And so it's a great story. Was it executed well? I mean, there are some scenes I love, but there are some things lacking in the original movie. So to me, it always made sense that there was room for a remake. It made sense, like remake Queen. Why? It's such a great movie. but they have, obviously, but like Silent Night, Deadly Night, yeah. So do you want me to tell you the story of how I became involved in Silent Night, Deadly Night, since I really can't tell you much about?
That would be cool. Yeah, let me know.
Well, okay. I mean, I could go way back, but like, okay, so I had this idea. I don't know if it's going to be boring, if you're going to cut this or whatever. I wanted to go into like the retail space in horror a couple years ago. And I had this idea for the one thing that when I go to horror conventions, I don't see greeting cards that like you open them up and they're like pop-up greeting cards, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, well, why don't we design a line of cards? And this is like, a creative person. Like I have 100 creative ideas a day, but this one day I was like, we need pop-up greeting cards in the horror space. Random, but I was like, I know that if you build something, they will come. Like if you build it, they will come. There's that saying. So I started studying pop-up design. Like I bought all these pop-up books. The Walking Dead has a pop-up book and all this stuff. So I learned how to grow these pops. And so I had an idea to do a Silent Night, Deadly Night pop-up card, which would pretty much open the card and the chimney with the axe. It all just sort of pops up and it says like, Merry Christmas or whatever. It says something like don't be naughty or something like that.
It's awesome.
So I was like, if they were available to be sold, like everybody would buy a pack of 10 and horror.
Yeah, I would send that to my entire family.
I was like, Friday the 13th. Actually, do I have them? Hold on a second. I actually might have. Hold on a second.
Oh, nice.
I might have the one I did for Friday the 13th right here. You have never shown this to anybody. Okay. I can't believe I'm showing this to you. All right. So I did one for Friday the 13th, and this is just a prototype. This was something I designed. Okay. So basically, it says like, today is your birthday, and this is a tree. Wait, I'm sorry. This is a tree, right? And this is the lake.
Yes.
So today it says your birthday, and then it says make it killer. And then you open it up, and like Jason lunges at you with a knife.
That is amazing.
And it's like, it's hard to kind of like show you how like amazing this really is, but like, it's just like,
wow.
Oh, then it's like, and then you get like stabbed in the neck, right? Because, and so I designed this.
And you don't sell them?
I don't. No.
Wow, man, dude.
I'll tell you the quick story behind it. That card, I needed to buy a special machine to like cut out the pieces for me, and like, I did hundreds. I'm not kidding you. I had to design each wave and all. So long story short, it took 6 months to design one card. It was like $2,500 to print up locally in Burbank. I just was never happy with like, it looks great, on camera, but I was never really happy with the paper. And clearly I was like and I did one for Scream. Oh my God, do I have the Scream one as well? Maybe, I don't know if I have one assembled for Scream.
Dude, you could make stacks of cash selling these, man.
Exactly, that was my idea. It was like, oh, everyone's gonna like for Valentine's Day, for Halloween.
Exactly, yeah.
Like Jason and Michael and Freddie and all that. So what I realized was I needed licenses, which I didn't have. And that the licensing's expensive. I know what they go for. I designed it. I don't have an assembled Scream one, but like it was different. You would open it up and like a full Scream guy would like Ghostface would jump out, and it said, "Hope this gets you screaming." And so anyway, long story short, the endeavor kind of stopped because I realized I needed too much time. It took too much time. It was too expensive, and those really were the reasons. But I always wanted to do it. So I can't tell you because there is a Silent Night, Deadly Night card coming because of this. that actually is getting made, and I don't want to say any more about it, but that one will be realized. It's fantastic.
Awesome.
Just look for it. It'll be out around November, but I don't want to say more because the company that's doing it, they should be able to make that announcement, but it's fucking amazing. So anyway, I love setting all that up. So I'm watching someone else release it, and I'm very happy, and I helped them. But okay, so I met with Dennis Whitehead, who was one of the executive producers of Silent Night, Deadly Night, along with Scott Schneid. So I have a friend, my friend Nate, who I mentioned before. Nate knew Dennis, and so I met with him a couple years ago to talk about this pop-up card, and I brought my samples, and so it was just to talk about this card, and then it didn't happen, and so a couple of years pass, and then I'm trying to remember all like the little details, but I had an opportunity to have lunch with Dennis and Scott during quarantine. We were all shut down like the rest of the world. And I actually went to lunch with them with my mask and everything. And I said, I know Dennis and I had met once before, but they were right on the cusp of signing the rights to Silent Night, Deadly Night to someone else. And so I don't want to go into the details of all that because that's like their issue or their thing, but I got in at a good time and I made a good impression. And I said to them, guys, if you bring me onto your team, I promise you, I will do all I can to remake your movie, make you guys happy. And I'm like, it would be a dream come true. And they had faith in me. And they said no to a couple of other prominent people, like I'm not prominent, but prominent people to say yes to me, which meant the world to me. And I couldn't believe it. And they put their faith in me. And I knew the opportunity I had. And so I went forth and set it up. And
nice.
So that's really what happened without going into too much detail. But this little greeting card idea was kind of the catalyst to open the door. And
nice. From greeting card to big horror movie.
It's so strange. So it's funny. Like I love this town because, like, that's how things happen. Like people say to me, like, "How do you break in the movie business?" I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea. You just have to find your own pathway and go down the roads that look like they're working. I see a lot of people in this business, and I say this from a person of experience. So I've been doing this for a while. I see a lot of people pursuing roads that are not working. And what I want to say to those people is you've got to go down another road. You have to look at what's in front of you and look like, who do you know? Like, it's just, you have to pursue the things that are working. And that's how you make it in this business. Because if you beat your head against the wall trying to get a project to work that's not working, you're just wasting your time. And time is everything in this business. And you can't waste time. So the greeting cards weren't working. So when I saw an opportunity to produce a movie, I was like, instead of this stupid card, let's make a movie together. And that's what I did. So.
You would think it would go the other way around, like you reach really high for a movie and then it's like, fuck, this isn't working. So I guess I'm going to make pop-up cards then. For you, it was the other way around.
Exactly. Right, exactly. It's usually the other way around. You're totally right. I can't make my movie. I'm just going to make like socks that have, Silent
Yeah.
Silent Night, Deadly Night. That was another thing is I didn't realize how much merchandise was out there. And Scott, who is like, Scott and Dennis have a company called Wonderwheel. So I said, well, how much merchandise are you doing for Silent Night? And like this past year and a half or like 2 years, they have sold so many t-shirts and posters and socks and activity books. And
man.
It's amazing the interest in Silent Night, Deadly Night now, almost 40 years later is.
I know, that's like crazy, right?
It's fascinating. I'm just like, wow. So there's room for, a remake. There really is. And so I'm very excited. So I don't know, maybe when I can tell you more, I can come back and give you more information. I don't know.
Sure, that would be awesome.
The team we're working with is great. There's a director and a writer. They're two separate people whom I'm extremely excited about. Like the distributor and the studio. The studio is Orwo Studios, and they're in Louisiana, and they're not like a known studio, but they are partnered with Black Hangar, which is a much more popular or famous studio in the UK. And they have stages all over the place. They've got all different offices in Germany, and they're basically they operate more of like as a rental place with a studio and a stage and all of that. Like Ethan Hawke, Kelsey Grammer, like these people have all rented the space to make movies there. But they do get their claws in IP, and they made the new Jeepers Creepers movie that's coming out this fall and everything.
Oh, nice.
So I'm US head of production there, and I just said, hey, I've got Silent Night, Deadly Night. And they were like, what? And I'm like, yeah, like, do you guys want to make this? And they just immediately hopped on board. So the team is fantastic. But when they said to me, who do you suggest as a writer and who do you suggest as a director? I had two people in mind. And I wrote a list of, like 6 or 7 people for director, 6 or 7, but I wanted these two people that were on the top of my list. And those are the people we got. So it's like a dream. It's almost like, well, if you had asked me, who do you want to make this, Anthony, what series would you like to reboot? Silent Night, Deadly Night, with which director and which writer? And I said their names. Like, I'm so happy to see it all clicking and working. So nice. I really think the team is there, and the script is being written now, and it's just going to be, hopefully we make a fantastic movie. So I'm just hanging on for the ride because it's all looking pretty good. So
awesome. Yeah. I'm so looking forward to this movie. Like, this is, I've never been more excited for a remake or a reboot, whatever you want to call it. It's like the original is my favorite Christmas movie ever. How dark that might sound. It's like you said, as much as I love the flaws that it has, like, I have that with a lot of B movies. I feel like Silent Night, Deadly Night is one of those movies that, like you said, it has room for little tweaks here and there for sure, and
I have to ask
twists.
Because, I'm in part of the remake. I have to ask you, what is like the one thing that you love most about the original Silent Night, Deadly Night? What is the thing that you wouldn't want us as filmmakers to lose in our remake or reboot?
You're putting pressure on me now.
By the way, what was that?
You're putting pressure on me now.
Well,
like, fuck.
I have to ask. I mean,
yeah.
Well, one thing that I can tell you is, it's not just a remake of the original story. And we talked about that because it was like, well, here was my position on that, because it was an option. It's like, well, it is famous in the horror community, but like, if you ask anyone down the street, have you seen Silent Night, Deadly Night? They're gonna be like, what are you talking about? So we could have just started over and just remade it and be very true to the first story and then go from there. And just kind of keep what worked and ditch what didn't and all that. But we just felt like there was that movie's been told. That story has been told.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it'll always be there on your shelf. So why retell it? And then it's like, if you want to watch the original story, just go watch the original movie. So we decided to do something that was more inspired, that felt like Silent Night, Deadly Night, but has a new kind of basic story, I guess. I guess, if that's accurate. But yeah, what was it? Was it? I mean, the directing was not very. I mean, Charles Sellier was not a director, so there are some scenes I love, but it's very grimy and gritty and low budget. Like, there's no sense of town in that movie. Like, once Billy goes on his spree, you really don't know where he is.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
And so there's no sense of town. And I think that those, like Haddonfield, like,
Yeah.
The town is, I think, a location in horror movies is kind of.
Yeah, my favorite example of that would be the 1988 Blob film. Like, you know, the opening scene with like the football, you can see the priest in the crowd, you know, and that's going to be a really important character later. It's like, that's so awesome.
That's interesting that you mentioned that. Like, you're right. Those little things are so important.
Yeah.
Sense of community and, you know,
exactly. Yeah.
just he kills Linnea on the antlers, which is great, and then he goes and beheads a couple kids, and you're just kind of like, well, where is he? And so I think that was a miss.
But the kills, like definitely the kills, that's one thing I think every horror fan would find really important from the remake. And of course, practical effects. That's what everyone loves.
Yeah, and exactly. And I'm so glad you said that, because I hate special effects in horror. Well, special effects, digital effects.
Yeah.
Like in movies like Pumpkinhead, and
I feel like that's what ruined the 2013 Silent Night movie. Did you see that one?
I did,
Because that one has like CGI blood, I think, and it's a fine movie, but it doesn't beat the original because, well, those effects and the movie overall is kind of corny, I feel, in some parts.
Yeah, it was weird because even when it came out, I was looking at it going like, is this a remake of Silent Night, Deadly Night? Because it was all called Silent Night. And then, so then after now that I'm working with Scott and Dennis, they told me all about that movie, and they were just really not involved in it. They weren't happy with it. They felt like it sort of came and went and very quickly, like it was just made quickly. And so they were kind of disappointed. So when I was talking to them, I was like, well, that's not what I want to do with it. I don't want to just like make it to make money and then I'm like, my heart will be in this.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference. And I think when we do a lot of Zoom meetings and stuff like that, and everyone is so passionate. And the writer and the director have said to all the producers, they've never worked with such passionate people that love slasher films as much as we all do. And so I'm like, oh, well, I thought this is the way it always is. And they're like, no, the producers are typically kind of like, they're corralling the people to create the vision, but they themselves are kind of lacking. I'm like, oh, that's not me. I'm like, I don't want to get in your way. I will uplift you and support you and everything. But I was like, no, let's do this right. I've got your back, and that's the team we have. So that's why I'm so excited, because like I feel like it's really in the right hands of it's in the right hands of the right people. So yeah, I'm just really, we should be shooting in December of this year. Awesome. That's the only thing I can tell you. And obviously release it, around holiday time next year. We don't want to
like, I'm pretty sure you can't say anything publicly about this, but do you know who's going to be playing Billy?
Not yet, but we have names. So we have people. Yeah, we're going to be casting soon, so we'll know.
Okay, nice.
But there is one person that I know is attached in another capacity, who is somebody that I've been thinking about since the day I thought I might actually get my hands on this property. And that person, I think, will surprise a lot of people. They're going to go, wait, I don't want to say too much, but I think they're going to go, that was the most interesting, inspired, amazing casting decision you could have ever made. And for me, it was hard. I felt like, is the team going to get this? Or they're going to look at me and go, Anthony, what the hell are you thinking? and I'm very surprised to see that everyone across the board has been like, that's amazing. And so it's a little like back pocket secret I have, and I can't wait to tell people who it is. And I think you'll be like, I think you might be like, I don't get it. And then you're gonna get it. Like, and I've learned that they're gonna go, wow, you're gonna go, that was amazing. So
awesome.
I'm not overselling it, but seriously, I'm still so excited this person's gonna be involved, and I can't wait. Yeah. That's the frustrating thing, is like, I want to tell everybody, but I can't. So.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I bet. I mean, I already have that with some interviews, oh, I'm gonna, post this in a week. And I'm like, I want people to see this now,
Yeah.
Yeah. One person.
Announcements are made, I'm more than happy to come back and tell you, because I just feel like it's been a long time since something old has been made new again. That's I mean, everything's being remade, but this is really, I think, one of those titles that deserves a remake.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And just like in the early 2000s, you had like the My Bloody Valentine reboot, and movies like that came out. But like in the tennies. Did we really get anything like that? Not really, right?
Well, I think all the IPs are kind of scooped up. I mean, I'm like, well, I'm doing Silent Night, Deadly Night. Let me go find something else. And Faces of Death just got announced that it's being remade. And I was like, I remember working in a video store, and like my education in horror was when I worked at a video store. When I got to college, I was a freshman in college. I got a job at a video store, and I went from A to Z. I rented all the VHS tapes.
Nice.
I saw everything, and I skipped Faces of Death because someone told me it was real. And I was like,
yeah, yep.
Yeah,
That's the reason I don't watch it.
Yeah, it's like the dirty little movies on the shelf that even I, as a horror fan, can't watch those.
Yeah.
But and I learned everything. I mean, I was a horror fan before that, but that's where I saw a lot of movies I didn't even know existed, because I was limited to what my parents were telling me and like what my friends and like. But when I worked at a video store, I was like, what's the pit? Rent the Pit. What is the stuff? I didn't know what the stuff was. And, so it was like, wow.
That's another one that would be such a good remake, because
So,
I really don't like that film, but I love the concept.
yeah, it's got a good, it's a, it's like a commentary on commercialism and
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's portrayed so goofy. They should, do it much darker, but also not too dark and too serious. I don't know. That would be something I would love to see remade.
That would be a massive rehaul, I think, of a remake. But I think that's kind of all that's left now. I mean, that's why I was so surprised about Silent Night, Deadly Night. I was like, wait, are you kidding me? Like, this is actually up for grabs still. Like it blew me away. And so there are some other properties I've been looking at that I'm like, well, but yeah, so it's nice to like be in this position to maybe knock on someone's door and say, hey, listen, we're doing Silent Night, Deadly Night. What do you think of us doing this? So also I've always loved Basket Case. I don't know if you guys have
yeah.
you seen it?
No, I haven't, but I have seen, like, I got a poster right there of the Frankenhooker movie, like from the same director.
Frank Henenlotter, yeah. I've loved Basket Case. I mean, it's this movie that like nobody know. I have a T-shirt. Hold on, let me show you. I have right here. I have like my Basket Case T-shirt. I mean,
nice.
I've got a Basket Case T-shirt. But like that movie, I would remake. But I think people would be like, nobody would care. It's weird. Like I would care, and I love the idea of two Siamese like twins getting separated, and then they join together to like kill the doctors that separated them, and it's just so bizarre. But I love the original movie so much. I wouldn't know how to remake it. It's so brilliant the way it's been made already. So what would I do with it? That even if I even had a shot, I feel like I wouldn't do it justice because I love the original film so much.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, it's difficult. So I don't know. Also, I think original ideas are sorely missing now, and so I hope I can parlay this experience into some original scripts that I've come across that I feel like could need to get made. The stories I have a script that I had commissioned to write for a certain actor that I still think is amazing, and I think it's different and inspired, and so who knows what's going to happen.
Awesome. Sounds very promising. Like everything you just said.
Thank you.
And then what documentary movie that you worked on are you most proud of? Like you spoke very highly of the Paranormal Activity one, so
well, it's, that's the one I think is it's the most different one, because it's, look, when you do a documentary on Friday the 13th, it's difficult. All right. So I think to answer your question, I think the one that I'm most proud of is my Halloween one, because it was my first, but also it was my foray into producing others. And so it was made at a time when I had done the Halloween convention, which was where we filmed most of the interviews. It was a very exciting time in my life. And so, and that's when I realized I was a producer. I mean, when I did the Halloween convention in 2003, it was, Pasadena Convention Center. We filled it with fans, and I almost had a breakdown because it took a year to organize that event, and I'd never organized an event like that before, and it was so stressful that that I almost had a breakdown. It was that stressful. But the smartest thing we did was we filmed it. And so after that, we were like, we could tell the story of how Halloween and its sequels kind of changed the horror landscape and ushered in modern horror and created Freddy and Jason and all these other characters. So I think we created a documentary that that pushed a really big ball in motion. So after that, we did Friday the 13th, but then if you look around, they're doing Police Academy, and there's so many of these franchise retrospectives, and I like to think that our project had a lot to do with the beginning of that. It was like the giant 1.5 hour or 2 hour bonus feature took center stage on the DVD as opposed to the movie. It was why you bought the DVD. Like I think 25 Years of Terror was the first Halloween release that didn't have Halloween on it. It had our documentary.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why I'm proud of it. It's because it created an opportunity for other people to do these epic retrospectives and really dive behind the scenes. Magazines were already doing it. Fangoria was doing that for years, but we were the first people, I think, to do a documentary. And now some of them are 4 hours long, In Search of Darkness. And it's just like it proves that there's this voracious appetite for behind the scenes stuff. So I think the Halloween one is the one I'm most proud of.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. And what are some of your own favorite horror movies? Like you already mentioned Halloween, of course.
God, I love horror. I just love horror movies so much. I love Frailty. I think Frailty is a fantastic movie. Have you seen Frailty?
I have not.
Okay, I won't say anything about it other than you have to see it. It's Bill Paxton in a role that he directs the movie, in a role that is so amazing. Matthew McConaughey is in it, and you've just got to see this movie. But that's a little bit of an obscure, but I love Pumpkinhead. I think Pumpkinhead's fantastic.
Nice.
Oh my God, why am I drawing? I like some of the Friday the 13th movies. I love parts 4 and 7 in Friday the 13th. I could watch those over and over.
Nice.
As I said, Basket Case, Silent Night, Deadly Night. I actually have a list that I started typing out.
Oh, nice. Perfect.
I love the Maniac remake.
I've only seen the original, but I've heard nothing but great things about the Maniac remake.
I see the Elijah Wood remake. It's funny. I discovered it, I don't know, 5 years ago, something like that. And I'm on my couch and I'm watching it at night, and I literally had to turn the lights on. I was so skeeved out by the way they directed it, and it really got under my skin, and I've watched it 10 times since, and I just have such admiration for so many aspects of that movie. The directing, the music, just really surprised me. I love
Nice.
Let the Right One In, the original Let the Right One In. That's the Swedish version. I love that film. I mentioned Basket Case. I love Reanimator. I like. It's interesting. I'm not a big monster movie fan, but I mentioned Pumpkinhead. I think the reason I love Pumpkinhead so much is because the special effects, Stan Winston's effects, are just so beautiful, and that monster horrifying. And it's just, somebody said once, when you think of scary, you think of that kind of monster, it's just coming to get you, and it's moving with such grace, but it will tear you apart. And I love 80s, pretty much 80s horror movies. I love Scream. I love the original Scream. I did a documentary on Scream. The first one I love so much. The 2, 3, and 4 I like, but I'm in love with the first movie. I remember seeing it in theaters, and when Drew Barrymore died in the first 15 minutes, I was like, wait a second. Wait, what? That's what they gave us in 15 minutes? What is the rest of the movie going to be like?
Right.
Are you kidding me? And so, I'm a huge Wes Craven fan. I love Wes's movies.
Actually, hold on. Now I can show you something. So, my brother actually was at the thrift store a couple years ago, and that day they got some
autographs, and they actually had Wes Craven's autograph at
God.
the thrift store.
At the thrift store.
I
Jeez.
know, right? Let me show it to the viewers as well.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's like at the thrift store. What's it doing there? I gotta pick it up, man.
I would have bought it too. I think any horror. Are you kidding me? Wow.
I know. That's like after you passed, so it's not like, oh well, I'll get it when I meet him at a con, because like unfortunately I can't.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I think that's amazing. Congratulations. I mean, that's awesome.
Thanks,
That's really
man.
nice. It was like a big signature. It wasn't like you just signed the little corner. It was
Yeah,
like
exactly. No,
prominent.
I took it out of the frame once, and it's like it's just like something from a magazine. It's like a page from a magazine that's ripped out.
Wow.
Kind of weird, but
Story behind that. Like who
I
got
know, man.
why did you frame it? Why is it in this thrift store? You know, what's
Yeah,
the story?
because I don't know. There was another iconic filmmaker's autograph there, but I'm not sure which one. It might have been someone related with the original Exorcist, but I'm really not sure. But there were a
Yeah.
bunch of things, but Wes was the only one I knew, but I knew I had to get it.
You know, I met Wes a few times. I interviewed him.
Wow, nice.
Yeah, actually in this room. He sat right here. Actually, I'm in my house, and when I bought my house, the first floor we turned into like a studio. And I filmed interviews for a couple documentaries here. And Wes came to my
Nice.
house. He came to my freaking house. I remember he knocked on the
Dude,
door.
that's amazing.
And our director, we opened the door, and there was Wes Craven and like his assistant. And we were like, "Hey, Wes, come on in." And
Yeah. Wow.
it was really, you know, what I love about Wes is, and I love this about him, is that he was not the confident, and I say this with such respect.
Mhm.
He would agree. I know he would agree if he were here right now. He didn't have the confidence that like John Carpenter and like all these other horror directors. I say this as a fact because he said it himself. I was watching an interview with him when I was doing my Scream documentary. He was on stage. They introduced him, and this is like, listen to this. This has floored me. He came on stage. They introduced him as the master of horror, like they always do. They sat him down, and he had Oren Peli on the stage with him, and he had someone else. And someone in the audience said, they asked him a question, and they said, you know, are you excited about your future? Whatever. And this was like 10 years ago. And he said, do you want me to be honest? This is Wes Craven. He goes, do you want me to be honest? And they're like, yeah. And he goes, I'm scared to death I'll never work again because my last movie just tanked. It was my soul to take. And he was like, this is right when Scream 4 was coming out. He goes, I've spent 5 years making this movie. Nobody liked it. It was ripped apart critically, commercially. And I don't think I'll ever work again. He goes, I get very nervous when people introduce me as the master of horror. He goes, I don't feel like I live up to that at all. He goes, there's a lot of filmmakers making great movies. He said, there are times in my life where I've lost all my money when I thought I'd be set for life. Like, now this is Wes Craven.
Yeah.
And I'm watching this guy who, and let's give him the credit he deserves. He reinvented the horror genre 3 times with Last House on the Left, Nightmare on Elm Street, Scream.
Sure.
Like, so in the wake of all of that, he's telling everyone he's afraid he'll never work again. And I was just watching this video going, how is this possible? How could somebody with such accolades and such a resume of like what, 30, 40 movies? He's worked with Meryl Streep. This guy's afraid he'll never work again. Like, it really showed me a side of him that was very vulnerable and
Extremely human, you know?
Yeah, it really blew me away. It really did, because that's a filmmaker that has something to teach other filmmakers. It's like, don't get in your head. Don't think you're the next great thing. Really put your heart into, because at the same time, he would say to you, I made movies that I've never seen before. Like before Nightmare on Elm Street, we hadn't seen that kind of like the arms stretching, and like he created a world that nobody had like really seen before. Same thing with Last House on the Left. And so I really feel like he was a creative soul that had a lot to teach horror filmmakers, because I'll tell you what, I know a lot of filmmakers that are a lot younger, that think they know how it's all done. They want to write, direct, score, edit. And I'm like, not everyone's John Carpenter. But there's a lot of people that break into the business who feel like they've got all the answers and that their brilliance waiting to be discovered. And here's Wes coming along, teaching us all to not be so confident, because I think if you are a filmmaker, you need to be vulnerable and you need to pay attention and learn and put it on screen. But there should be doubt, I think. So anyway, that's why
because eventually you think too easy of it, and that's where you're gonna fall. That's where your downfall starts, basically, I guess.
Yeah. I'm telling you, like, whenever I hear someone going like, well, I'll score it and edit it, I'm like, oh, like, think about this, just like a statistical kind of thing. You may be a fantastic director, but your stats go down as a great filmmaker if you go, but I'm also a fantastic editor and a fantastic composer and a fantastic producer and whatever. It's like your odds of creating a fantastic, amazing movie wearing all the hats go down. And so Carpenter happened to be John Carpenter happened to be an incredible director and an incredible composer. But not everybody's John Carpenter. So yeah. And Wes surrounded himself with people that I felt like uplifted him. And, he had a producing partner. He has a producing partner, Marianne Medellina, who was just sort of by his side for many years. And he had Patrick Lussier, who's a genius, editing his movies. So he's surrounded
Dracula 2000. I love that movie.
Great movie. Oh my God. Nobody talks about it.
I know, like it's fantastic, man. It's funny because when I first watched that, I thought Wes directed it. I was like, Wes Craven doing a Dracula movie? Hell yeah, man. But then I saw directed by Patrick Lussier, and I was like, that's also awesome, but it's not Wes. But anyway, I'll enjoy it for this then.
And also Wes went through a lot of, like, there was a time when he was really creative in the beginning, like, and him and Sean Cunningham were friends and they helped each other's careers. And I was like, that's amazing. Like, you've got these two guys that created iconic horror franchises and they were buddies, and then they made Last House on the Left and then they made some other things. And there was a time when they were in love with filmmaking and they were able to make movies that, and then you become part of the studio, and then now it's business. And I think part of Wes's creative soul got crushed because he's a businessman now as opposed to a filmmaker. And so and when you're in the film industry, very quickly you realize that what's the bottom line, and the bottom line is always money. And so as an indie filmmaker, I tend to make like a lot of documentaries. There's a lot of freedom. I can do what I want. I don't have people telling me what to do. But when you're Wes Craven and you're going to make Friday Part 2 now it's a business. Now we're going to and so there's got to be a part of him that was very disappointed in that and realizing, oh, I'm like an employee kind of.
Right.
Yeah. So 40-year career though, how do you scoff at that? I mean, I'm sure when he passed away, he was proud of his body of work, and so
I mean, his legacy will for sure live on,
for sure. Yeah.
Like, would you say you were kind of friends with him? Like, did you?
No, I wasn't friends with him.
It was just like you saw him at that con and you interviewed him once, and
I mean, I did not hang out with him or anything.
Yeah, okay, right.
My friend Rachel, who runs Screamfest, she knew him a lot more. I mean, she was friends with him. He would come to her house.
Yeah.
He was on her board of on her advisory board, and he would read the screenplays that were submitted, and he would judge the films. And but no, I didn't know him. I'm glad I didn't, because I want it when I think of, not that I'm glad I didn't, but I like the Wes that I know in my head. And I have books here. I have some books about Wes. Okay, I got this one, Wes Craven interviews, that I've been devouring.
Oh, nice.
I'm learning a lot about him as a man, and I didn't know until recently that he hadn't seen a movie until he was in college.
Wow.
Can you believe this? Like, he was a fundamentalist Baptist when he was growing up, and his parents would not allow him to watch anything but Disney movies. And he would carry a Bible to school. This is Wes Craven. And he wasn't able to see, the first movie he saw in theaters was To Kill a Mockingbird, I think he was a senior in college, and he had to go to another town to see it because if people found out, he would have gotten in trouble. I mean, that to me is who do you know that's not seen a non-Disney movie until they were like a senior in college? So
Yeah.
fascinating. He's fascinating to me. He's a director that has something to teach us as filmmakers. And I'll admit I don't love all of his movies. I think some of his movies did not work, but the ones that did changed the course of horror.
Yeah.
So you got to give that to him, you know?
Well, I asked because I was wondering, like, where were you at when you heard he had passed? Like, what did that do to you then, knowing, you know, you have interviewed him, he had been in your house, and...
Well, it crushed me, and it was nobody knew, and I was just scrolling Facebook and saw it, and I remember gasping, like, you know, like, fucking Wes Craven died, like, no.
Yeah.
Immediately, everyone, like, for a long time after that, people were posting stuff, and yeah, I mean, I didn't know, nobody knew, very few people knew. I know somebody, his name is RJ Torbert. RJ Torbert runs Fun World, that licenses the Scream, the Ghostface mask, and he said that he's friends with Wes, and I don't know how close they were, but in talking to RJ after that, he's like, no, we would text each other, and he claims to have known that he was sick, and he was like, oh, I'll talk about it one day, I'll let people know what I knew, and blah blah blah. But yeah, I mean, I guess I'll take it back. I wish I knew him better, but I didn't. So
Right.
happy that I crossed paths with him, and he gave us time. He gave us 3 hours to talk about all the Scream movies. I have a 2.5 hour interview with him that I don't think anybody's really seen, because when we cut our documentary, you know, you spend 3 hours with somebody, you don't put all of that in your documentary. Yeah. So there's stuff he talked about that I don't think that didn't make it in the documentary. So I have that. But yeah, I miss him though. I really do. I miss his professionalism and his warmth. And every time I'd see him talk in an interview, I'd be like, who doesn't love this guy? Like, he's just well spoken, and
yeah, I know. It's crazy, you know. That's something no one on the street that is not a horror fan would expect from a guy that created like your nightmares, literally. And here's a philosophical question for you. If you ruled the world, what would it look like?
What would it look like? Well, for one thing, you understand when I say I love horror movies, like, I would love everyone to just like I would put like Freddy and Jason and like everybody like all over the place. There'd be images, there'd be all kinds of like cafe. Every cafe would be like a horror cafe.
Yes.
Like it would just be horrors. I don't know. I think it would be a much more fun world. I think of fun. I mentioned Fun World before with RJ, but it would be a much more fun world. And I mean, like, I have people in my family that don't understand why I love horror movies. And it's like, when I see a horror movie, when I see Basket Case and I see this brother carrying his like severed twin in a basket and they're attacking doctors that separated them, to me, it's so fun, but also it's like, it makes you smile. As sick as it is, you're just like, isn't that amazing? Like, there's a movie called Basket Case where, you know, and it's I think that's what it is. It's so outrageous. The horror genre is so outrageous, and so it's such a playground. And when I see special effects of like Pumpkinhead and they actually create a monster that terrifies you, I just see something so beautiful. So the world would be more horrific, more horrific imagery, but there would be a lot of fun. It would be a much more fun world. People wouldn't be so uptight. And everybody wouldn't take themselves too seriously. That would be
that's like what I just thought as you were saying that. Yeah. People take themselves too serious these days.
Get outraged. You know, I say it from, this is my, I don't know if I invented this phrase, but it's like people go from zero to outraged. There's no in between anymore. They go from zero to outraged.
That's so true. Yeah.
It's like, you know what one of my pet peeves is somebody does something wrong. Okay, this cancel culture, I understand.
Oh, yeah.
They do something wrong. They're called out for it. they genuinely apologize, and then we don't accept the apology. I would love to live in a world where we actually accept a person's apology if it's genuine, and we accept an apology and we give somebody a second chance. I would love to live in that world.
Yeah.
Like, I always say, like, what's the point of an apology if we won't accept it? And actually, so if they've given you an apology, you've accepted it, they've been put on notice. So the next time they do something that sort of cancels them, we can all say, dude, you did it again. You did it to yourself. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Every day I read a story about how somebody's been like called out or canceled, and it's like they apologize and then they do apologize. And then you look like Harvey Weinstein was a monster. Like, that guy can just kind of go rot in prison. But everyone else, like, what did you really do? You said something on Facebook 10 years ago that pissed a lot of people off.
Yeah. Like
Be like, you know what? Okay, great. Thank you for apologizing. Let's reset the matrix. Let's go from here. I'd like to live in a world where we accept apologies. That's what I would give
yeah,
people.
I was thinking about that the other day, like if you make a mistake and you apologize, you would want people to forgive you too. So why not do that onto others, right?
Yeah. Like, why not? And then that person learns something, and then you all understand, you grow, it's like, but no, people are very quick to be like, fuck this person, screw that person. And
Yeah.
like, the power in that is, is, and then you think, like, did I ever say anything? Did I ever do anything? And then you start thinking of yourself and you're like, well, I don't think so. But like, what if somebody scrolls down my Facebook page and I say something that will rub someone the wrong way, and you can't help but think like that.
Yeah, it's a new way of like censorship, basically.
Yeah. And like, also, like in the States, you do have free speech. You can say what you want. It doesn't mean that you can go around saying awful things to people. I mean, just consequences aren't part of that. Like, you can say whatever you want, but if there's consequences, fine. But I think I'm a little surprised at I think I have a higher threshold than most people when it comes to cancel culture or like being upset over something somebody says. I can take more than, but I have some friends, man, that like, oh, they said that 10 years ago, done. I'm never watching it anymore. Okay, fine.
People change, man. So
yeah.
it makes zero sense. And speaking of change, if you could change one characteristic about yourself, what would you change?
My God. What would I change? Well, it's funny because as I'm getting older, some of the things about my personality or my work habits or whatever that I didn't like, I'm embracing. There's something about age that you will learn. I'm obviously older than you. You will learn as you get older that the things you were concerned about when you were younger just don't care anymore. I used to be like, I can't speak my mind. Well, now I can. Now it's like I can say no pretty easily. I can say things I couldn't say before. I guess just in general, I'd like to be taller. I'm pretty happy with who I am and my characteristics and traits, I guess.
Nice.
So.
Well, one thing I would say I would change is I can be pretty forgetful sometimes. Like, shit, I should have done this or whatever. But usually that's like, for myself, it's like, oh, I can just do it later. But if it's like an appointment with someone, it sucks like for the person as well.
Right.
Who knows? Maybe they'll cancel me or something.
Let's hope that doesn't happen.
Exactly. And here, final question. If your life was a movie, how would you want it to end?
Oh, how would I want my life to end? Oh my God. I'm going to say this, something I don't know if you know, it has nothing to do with the film industry, but I'm a professional magician as well.
Nice.
So, right. And I've done a lot of magic shows. I perform at the Magic Castle in Hollywood. If you don't know what that is, you should look it up. It's called the Magic Castle. I've been on TV. I love it. I think I would want to just be remembered. I think that's how I want it to end. And the reason I say that is because in the magic community, the way magicians learn other magic routines and learn about the history of magic and stuff is we all create books and DVDs, and we share our secrets with each other. And up until 7-8 years ago, I had realized I don't have something that commemorates my magic. So like, in other words, if I die, is anyone going to remember the magic that I did? And so I finally did a performance for a magic DVD we released years ago. And I'm so proud of it because when I'm gone, other magicians will buy my DVD. It'll be in magic shops and they'll learn my routines and they'll learn my thinking and all that. And I think the same thing translates to film. I would just want to be remembered as somebody that had passion for the horror genre. Very important. I mean, I don't want to make, look, I don't know what's going to become of my career and all that, but I really want to keep making horror movies and I want to make horror television and all that stuff. I just want to be remembered. And maybe somebody who can play me that's a little taller, I would be happy in life movie or something. I keep, like, I sound like I'm like really short. I'm not that short, but if 3 inches taller, I'd be like.
I love that. Perfect tone to end the interview.
Awesome.
Is there anything you would like to add?
No, this was a lot of fun. I love your Jaws poster in the back, and
thanks.
I can tell just by talking to you that you do love horror. That you love horror movies. I mean,
Yes.
you mentioned Frankenhooker. I was like, that's amazing that you say that to me. Like, if you lived here, we'd be, you'd be in my house at my gatherings and stuff. Like, I'd be inviting you. So if you ever
Awesome.
you let me know.
Hey, hopefully one day, right?
Hopefully.
Awesome. And to everybody watching, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. See ya.